Chapter 16 of the Book of Werewolves. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Karen Spence. The Book of Werewolves by Sabine Baring-Gould. Chapter 16. A Sermon on Werewolves. The following curious specimen of a late medieval sermon is taken from the old German edition of the Discourses of Dr. Johann Geiler von Kaisersberg, a famous preacher in Strasbourg. The volume is entitled Die Ameisen. Dies ist das Buch von der Ameisen, und der König ich dient gern, und sagt von Eigenschaft der Ameisen, und gibt Unterweisung von der unholden Ödehexen, und von Gespenst, der Geist, und von dem Wütenden hier wunderbarlich. This strange series of sermons was preached at Strasbourg in the year 1508, and was taken down and written out by a barefooted friar, Johann Pauli, and by him published in 1517. The doctor died on Midland Sunday, 1510. There is a Latin edition of his sermons, but whether of the same series or not I cannot tell, as I have been unable to obtain a sight of the volume. The German edition is illustrated with bold and clever woodcuts. Among other, there are representations of the witch's Sabbath, the wild huntsman, and a werewolf attacking a man. The sermon was preached on the third Sunday in Lent. No text is given, but there is a general reference to the gospel for the day. This is the discourse. What shall we say about werewolves? For there are werewolves which run about the villages devouring men and children. As men say about them, they run about at full gallop, injuring men, and are called Werewolf or Werewolf. Do you ask me if I know aught of them? I answer yes. They are apparently wolves which eat men and children, and that happens on 7 accounts: Isurium, hunger; rabium, savageness; senectutem, old age; experientium, experience; insanium, madness; diabolum, the devil; and deum, God. The first happens through hunger. When the wolves find nothing to eat in the woods, they must come to people and eat men when hunger drives them to it. You see well, when it is very cold, that the stags come in search of food up to the villages, and the birds actually into the dining room in search of victuals. Under the second head, wolves eat children through their innate savageness. Because they are savage, and that is propter locum coitum ferum, their savageness arises first from their condition. Wolves which live in cold places are smaller on that account, and more savage than other wolves. Secondly, their savageness depends on the season. They are more savage about Candlemas than at any other time of the year, and men must be more on their guard against them then than at other times. It is a proverb, "He who seeks a wolf at Candlemas, a peasant on Shrove Tuesday, and a parson in Lent, is a man of pluck." Thirdly, their savageness depends on their having young. When the wolves have young, they are more savage than when they have not. You see it in all beasts. A wild duck, when it has young poults, you see what an uproar it makes. A cat fights for its young kittens, and wolves do ditto. Under the third head, the wolves do injury on account of their age. When a wolf is old, it is weak and feeble in its legs, so it can't run fast enough to catch stags, and therefore it rends a man, whom it can catch easier than a wild animal. It also tears children and men easier than wild animals because of its teeth, for its teeth break off when they are very old. You see it well in old women, how the last teeth wobble, and they have scarcely a tooth left in their heads. and they open their mouths for men to feed them with mash and stewed substances. Under the fourth head, the injury the werewolves do arises from experience. It is said that human flesh is far sweeter than other flesh. So when a wolf has once tasted human flesh, he desires to taste it again. So he acts like old topers, who, when they know the best wine, will not be put off with inferior quality. Under the fifth head, the injury arises from ignorance. A dog, when it is mad, is also inconsiderate, and it bites any man. It does not recognize its own lord. And what is a wolf but a wild dog, which is mad and inconsiderate, so that it regards no man? Under the sixth head, the injury comes of the devil, who transforms himself and takes on him the form of a wolf. So writes Vincentus in his Speculum Historiale, and he has taken it from Valerius Maximus in the Punic War. When the Romans fought against the men of Africa, when the captain lay asleep, there came a wolf and drew his sword, and carried it off. That was the devil in a wolf's form. The like writes William of Paris, that a wolf will kill and devour children, and do the greatest mischief. There was a man who had the fantasy that he himself was a wolf, and afterwards he was found lying in the wood, and he was dead out of sheer hunger. Under the seventh head, the injury comes of God's ordinance. For God will sometimes punish certain lands and villages with wolves. So we read of Elijah, that when Elijah wanted to go up a mountain and out of Jericho, some naughty boys made a mock of him, and said, "O bald head, step up! O glossy pate, step up!" What happened? He cursed them. Then came 2 bears out of the desert, and tore about 42 of the children. That was God's ordinance. The like we read of a prophet, who would set at naught the commands he had received of God, and he was persuaded to eat bread at the house of another. As he went home, he rode upon his ass. Then came a lion which slew him, and left the ass alone. That was God's ordinance. Therefore must a man turn to God when he brings wild beasts to do him a mischief, which same brutes may he not bring now or evermore. Amen. It will be seen from this extraordinary sermon that Dr. Johann Geiler von Keysersperg did not regard werewolves with any other light than natural wolves filled with the lust for human flesh, and he puts aside altogether the view that they are men in a state of metamorphosis. However, he alludes to this superstition in his sermon on the wild men of the woods, but translates his lycanthropist to Spain. End of chapter 16. Recording by Karen Spence. End of the Book of Werewolves by Sabine Baring-Gould.